Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Janarandhana Jasadanandana Braja Janarandhana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivijagacharya Astakarasata Sri by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrī Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Samhita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Parents of the children, please help the children find the exit door. In fact, maybe someone can close the exit door once they've exited. Thank you very much. So far in our discussion on Śrī Brahma-sam, we've discussed the introductory verse, the Paribhasa Sutra, that sets the theme and message for the entire text. And then we discussed the abode of Krishna, because the first verse is about Krishna, then he has his residence, his transcendental Vishuddha Sattva residence. That's at the center of a corolla, lotus flowers corolla. And now we're going to hear further descriptions about that abode of Krishna. We discussed the fact that Goloka, in the spiritual Paravyom, the spiritual sky, and Gokula here in this earthly realm, they're non-different transcendentally. Yet there are some slight differences, something that Jiva Goswami mentions in his Krishna Sandarbha about the differences that exist for Krishna's different abodes. He writes, just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead has many different forms in order to enjoy many different pastimes, in the same way, the transcendental abode of the Lord, although one, is manifested in many different forms. And he refers to the Rig Veda to support that statement. The transcendental abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who fulfills all desires, is manifested in different ways. So, essentially, the differences are there for varieties of enjoyment. Prabhupada made it very simple by saying, it is said, variety is the mother of enjoyment. Enjoyment is the son, the child, the offspring, and the mother is variety. So the spiritual realm, Krishna is filled with variety, although there's a transcendental oneness. Within those varieties, there's nonetheless the emphasis is upon the oneness, the non-difference between Goloka and Gokula, because in the translation, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is describing Gokula. But either way, Gokula, Goloka, it's the same. So now we're going to begin with text number 3, and you see it projected here. So we'll chant it together. Karnikaram mahadyantram shatkonam vajrakīrakam saranga satpadhistanam prakritya purushena cha premananda mahananda rasena vastitam hiyat jyoti rupena manuna kama bijena sangatam. And I'll read the translation. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure. Hexagonal means six-sided. The abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute Truth. That means Radha and Krishna live there. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with six-fold divisions. So, there you see the hexagonal figure with six-fold divisions and the 18 transcendental letter mantra inscribed within it. We'll hear some more about it in the next verse also. So what's pictured here is what we're describing in today's discussion. As those who have taught this subject matter before have said, I'll repeat, perhaps out of all of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust publications, this particular section that we're covering right now is probably the most complex, most perplexing, and most difficult to understand. Besides the language of Bhaktisiddhanta. So if you have a little difficulty following everything, don't worry about it. Try to hear the message, and when you get a chance, you can go back and read the subject and hear the discussion again, and exactly as Prabhupada said how he understood Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he just heard again and heard him again and heard him again, and eventually, through purification, the subject matter becomes understood. It's not an intellectual or academic acumen task. It's not like something that you learn in college and you just, by ascending process, gradually you understand something that's very technical and sophisticated and complex. It's not like that. It's not like that. If you approach in that way, you'll be forever scratching your head. It's not that kind of subject matter. This is revelation from the spiritual world of how the spiritual world is structured, what goes on there, like that. It's descending knowledge, and so take it that way. And there is some complexity to it, but listen carefully. Do your best to listen carefully. In the verse, Karnikaram Mahad Yantram, this little boy needs to find the back exit door as soon as possible. There we go. Thank you. So, yantram is mentioned. Karnikaram Mahad Yantram. We find this word yantra in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says the living entity is situated as if on a machine made of the material energy. Yantra, Rudhani Mayaya. Yantra is a machine. So, this verse is going to be describing a yantra. In fact, here it is. It's a depiction, a geometric or graphic depiction of the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. In fact, here's the Goloka Yantra. And you see inscribed on the yantra letters that that these verses are going to take messages from the letters and explain them in words. But here it is visually, and here is a depiction, compliments of Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. I don't know where he found it, but this is exactly what we're describing. Those of you that can read these letters, in the center, there's the word Kleem. And then surrounding, you see that there's a blue triangle superimposed over a red triangle, right in the center. You see? And you connect the internal part, and you get a hexagon, six-sided. Like in Judaism, the Star of David is that six-pointed star, but that also makes a hexagon, and around the hexagon is another mantra, which is going to come up in text 27. So this is a depiction of the spiritual world. We'll go back here. Those of you who have been to Mayapur, if you can remember seeing the altar of Lord Nrsingadev, there's the main altar of Radha Madhava and the Ashtasakis, and then the Panchatattva altar over the other side. And in between there's the altar of Lord Nrsingadev, Prahlad Nrsinga. And picture in your mind, if you will, just basically at the feet of Lord Nrsingadev, on a lower level, there's two of these brass plates. Those are Nrsinga yantras. Now I ask the pujaris, do you use these in worship in some particular way? Is there some mantras or puja or something that's utilized? And I got a pujari answer, which wasn't a yes or a no, but it actually was a no, but it wasn't so clear. But in some places in South India, and at some points in time, these were actually used as like a deity, or indicating the abode of, in that case, Lord Nrsingadev, in this case, the abode of Krishna. This is because the verses are describing the abode of Krishna, if you remember from this morning's class. First Krishna, then the abode of Krishna, in these verses 2 through 5. So the yantra is a depiction of the abode of Krishna and who is there and what's there and everything. It's described in this graphic form. And it was used by Lord Brahma as part of his process of meditation. He would meditate upon his mantra or chant his mantra while seeing or visualizing the yantra. Like we might have kirtan before the deity and see the deity form standing on his throne or asana and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and have kirtan. Brahma's process was he would chant mantra, this 18-syllable mantra, while fixing his gaze upon the yantra, or fixing within his mind the abode of Krishna, chanting the Krishna mantra. That was his process. So we're hearing now a little description of that yantra. Here's the yantra when it's has nothing in it, and this verse is placing within it the hexagonal mantra, the 18-syllable mantra, as you see. So now, that's what the conversation, or the body of the text. We'll go back to this nice picture. We'll go to this nice picture. Within the purport, I'm going to cover several points. Within the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur discusses carrying over from the previous text the distinction between Goloka and Gokula. If you remember, there were 4 that I mentioned. So when Krishna performs his pastimes in Gokula, that's once in a day of Brahma, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna appears in Mathura, carried by his father to Gokula, on the other side of the river Jamuna, and performs his Braja Leela, his Vrindavan pastimes, once in every day of Brahma. And when he manifests those pastimes, they're given an adjective, prakat, Leela, manifest pastimes. And we said this morning, when Krishna performs his manifest pastimes, very merciful, because qualified or unqualified, everyone can see. Kamsa can see, the washerman of Kamsa can see, Shishupal can see, all kinds of unqualified people and even bad people, they can see. They can see Krishna and experience his pastimes. And then there's another category of Krishna's Leela called aprakat, unmanifest pastimes, aprakat Leela. And those aprakat Leelas are of 2 types. One is in Goloka. Only qualified people can experience Krishna's pastimes in Goloka. And there's a second, and that is the pastimes that Krishna, someone was asking, one of the boys was asking the question of Krishna's eternal pastimes, Nitya Leela. When we say our Premadvani prayers, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, it means that the person who we've just described has pravishta, has entered into Krishna's Nitya Leela. Nitya Leela Pravishta. Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parinivajakacharya. That's what that phrase means. So, Krishna's pastimes in Goloka, they're eternal. Krishna's pastimes in Gokula, they're eternal. But those that are not qualified cannot see. But those that are qualified can see. Like I mentioned this morning, Mother Janava, when she went to Radhakund and was chanting the same Hare Krishna mantra that we chant, she saw Krishna's pastimes. She saw a bridge going across the Radhakund. And Radha and Krishna and the gopis were on that bridge enjoying their pastimes together. And then she reported that when she came back from her sitting place. And so on. So, Krishna's pastimes are eternally taking place. There's many nice examples. If I didn't have to speak Śrī Brahma-sam, I would give you, I spent 2 hours giving you examples of very qualified devotees, pure devotees, who are able to experience Krishna's pastimes even today, or certainly during the time of the 6 Goswamis. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time following Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse to describe the aprakat and prakat lila. So Jiva Goswami explains, quoting from Gopal Tapani Upanishad from Atharva Veda, what the process is, one of 2 processes whereby one may become qualified to see Krishna's aprakat lila. Would you like to hear that description? Because we're doing it in Śrī Brahma-sam, but we may not know what it is. So here's what it is. This is quoting Lord Brahma speaking in Gopal Tapani Upanishad. With eloquent prayers, I and the Maruts please Lord Govinda, whose form is eternal. That was text 2. Whose form is eternal, or in text 1, and full of knowledge and bliss, who stays under a desire tree in Vrindavan. Notice the desire tree that he stays under, shown in the depiction. And who is the 5-word mantra, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Balabhaya Svaha, inscribed in that hexagon. So the statement is, the mantra is Krishna. You know, it's the same. The Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different. Abhinatvam nama namino. Krishna and Krishna's name, because he's absolute. So the mantra is inscribed on the yantra, and Krishna is there in the center as the syllable or bija mantra Klim. Radha and Krishna are there at the center under desire tree, and Krishna in the form of the mantra is there in the hexagonal form, and that's where he performs his pastimes. So mantra upasana is the process where one worships the Supreme Lord through mantra. Now remember the situation when Brahma appeared at the dawn of creation. There was nothing. Well, there was darkness, and there was a lotus flower. It wasn't like, go next door and see your neighbor, or send a text message to somebody, or say Hari Bol Prabhu or something. There was nothing. But he had his mantra, and so he was worshipping, or upasana, he was worshipping Krishna through his mantra. We do that also. We just don't exactly know so much what we're doing, but we do that also. So Jiva Goswami writes, by remaining in a holy place, without traveling to other places, one may perform this process of mantra upasana worship and become eligible to directly perceive Lord Krishna's pastimes. He makes reference to this process from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9. O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there, just as his seat is at the center of the hexagonal mantra. You are so merciful to your devotees that you always manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. If you can recall, I made mention at the very beginning of the diversities of Gokula and Goloka, and for that matter the different forms of the Lord and the differences within the abodes of the Lord. There's diversity to reciprocate with how the devotees think of him. The mood of love of the devotee, Krishna reciprocates with and manifests himself accordingly. So this mantra upasana process is compared to a lake. Sometimes, commonly, lakes are formed by water from some stream or river accumulating. And mantra upasana is compared to entering into the lake. And there's a particular singular pastime of Krishna or a singular feature of Krishna. Jiva Goswami says the verses that we Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti, that we, every time we have our greeting of the deities process that Prabhupada engaged all his followers in, it's mantra upasana. Those mantras, Venum Konvantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham, those are examples of mantra upasana verses. By meditating on such verses, as Lord Brahma did, he was able to see Krishna. He was able to see a particular aspect of Krishna or pastime of Krishna. And this is exactly the same process that the Goswamis followed because they were so qualified. Then after entering into the lake, they could then move into the river. And the river is metaphorical, is the flowing of Krishna's pastimes. So not just a particular pastime, but through the mantra upasana process, entering into another stage that's called sva rasaki. This is described in the purport, and it's from Jiva Goswami's commentary. Sva rasaki is the ongoing unfolding of Krishna's pastimes. His uppercut lila, one can not only see, but one can enter into and participate in. I'll do it again. We'll go back. There's prakat and aprakat. Prakat is when Krishna comes and performs his pastimes so everyone can see. And when those pastimes, the scheduled incarnation is over, Krishna we hear, his leelas continue in some other universe. But here, in the Boma earthly Gokul, the pastimes are eternally going on, and qualified persons, through this mantra upasana process, can see them. And by the matured stage, they can swarasaki, they can enter into them. I'll give an example. This is from Bhakti Ratnakar. Some of you have likely heard this description. It's Rupa Goswami who was qualified in this way. He was chanting his mantra, and while he was chanting his mantra, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna were being enacted in his heart, and he was participating in them. And at one particular point, absorbed in this way, Krishna said something funny, Radha said something funny, and everyone participating in the Leela laughed, and Rupa Goswami laughed. But he was within, on his spiritual form, he was laughing, but his body externally also laughed, because spirit moves matter. And as he was laughing, internally and externally, a very old Brahmin passed by, who was lame, and he was walking in an awkward, difficult way. And when he saw Rupa Goswami laughing, he thought Rupa Goswami was laughing at how, just see this crippled man, he can hardly walk. And he laughed. That wasn't what Rupa Goswami was doing, but the man thought. And he was disturbed. So he took his disturbance to the elder brother, Sanatana Goswami, and said, I can't understand this. Rupa Goswami is such an elevated person. Why would he laugh at a lame man, old man walking by, like making fun of him? My mind is very disturbed. How can a saintly person do something like that? And Sanatana Goswami said, I'll look into it, and I'll get back to you in whatever the situation is. So later in the day, Rupa Goswami came to visit Sanatana Goswami, and he was describing, today I was having this wonderful meditation on Radha and Krishna's pastimes, and there was such a joyful pastime, and as something funny was spoken by both Radha and Krishna, suddenly my meditation broke. So I tried to get back into the meditation, but I couldn't get back into the meditation like that. It just didn't happen. And as Sanatana Goswami heard, he put 2 and 2 together and came up with 4. And said, the reason you couldn't enter again into that meditation is one Brahmin who was passing by thought you were making fun of him. When you were laughing because of that joyful pastime that you were participating in, he thought you were laughing at him. So he's taken offense. So I recommend you go offer your apology to that Brahmana, explain the circumstance, and surely he will forgive you and everything will be all right again. Because when you make an offense to a Vaishnava, even the unknowing kind of offense, if you find out that that person has felt offended by you, you go and appeal for them for their forgiveness, just as Durvasa Muni was told by Lord Vishnu to go to Maharaj Ambarish and ask forgiveness from Maharaj Ambarish. That's what nectar devotion teaches us we should do if we've offended someone. So Rupa Goswami went to the old Brahmin and apologized and explained everything. Please forgive me. I wasn't meaning to make fun of you. And the Brahmin was saying, oh, I'm the one who's offended because I was thinking that you were making fun of me and certainly you weren't doing that. And my perception was wrong and I made the offense. Please forgive me. And so everything was nice. This is a scriptural example of something that regularly took place. Jiva Goswami writes in his Krishna Sandarbha and in his commentary to Brahma Samhita, when describing this mantra upasana and swarasiki process, there are still some people today, some people, the 6 Goswamis and such qualified people, who could experience Krishna's aprakat lila. And the reason we're going into this, or the reason Jiva Goswami goes into it, is because this is what Brahma did. He received, we're going to find out a little bit later how he received, but he received this Gopal mantra, and for thousands of years, we're impatient. We want quick results. For thousands of years, and he was Lord Brahma, For thousands of years, he simply meditated upon this mantra with use of the yantra depicting Goloka, because that's what the yantra does. It's Krishna's abode. And then in the center is Krishna. Surrounding Krishna is this mantra. So the yantra becomes transcendental because of the mantra. And the mantra is not different than Krishna. And therefore it's Krishna's abode. You follow? Is anybody lost? Should I do it again? Huh?
We understand the example, but can you repeat the
Sequence? Brahma received a mantra. This gloom, it's darkness in all directions. He's born on this lotus flower, and he's highly intelligent. He wants to know, who am I? He searches out, who am I? I'm seated on a lotus. There's a stem. If I follow the stem, maybe I'll find out where I've come from. Deductive logic. Well, he couldn't find the end of the stem. So then he realized deductive process isn't going to work. And then he received the instruction. Srimad Bhagavatam says he heard tapa. Tapasya. In Brahma Samhita it says his tapasya specifically was his meditation upon this Gopal mantra that's depicted in the hexagon. So he was meditating on, he was doing mantra upasana. He was meditating upon his mantra. He was worshipping, upasana means worship. He was worshipping Krishna through his mantra, because the mantra is Krishna. We just read it from Gopal Tapani Upanishad. The mantra is Krishna. He was worshipping Krishna. And Krishna has an abode. Krishna is not alone. He's situated somewhere. And that abode is depicted in the yantra. So, fixing his mind upon the yantra, meditating upon his mantra, he realized Krishna. He was able to experience Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. Aprakat, Leela. Okay? And then continuing with that further, entering into the lake, one can then enter into the river of Krishna's pastimes. And the pastimes flow, one event after the next event, and the unfolding of Krishna's pastimes, not just a scene, but the whole ongoing flow of Krishna's pastimes, and one can directly participate in them if one is very qualified. Mantra upasana leading to swarasaki are ways to enter into Krishna's experience, understand and enter into Krishna's aprakat lila even today. Okay? Okay, so that was the first part. Now I'm going to move to the second part of this evening class. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj and following him, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada in their commentary describe a slightly different, similar but slightly different process or stage, and it's in relation to the Bhagavad Gita verse, the Brahmabhuta verse from Bhagavad Gita. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan Brahmabhuyaya kalpate. You can look it up later if you like. 1426. So Chaitanya Charitamrita presents the verse, and then there's a commentary on it. Prabhupada is quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who says, there are two stages in this Brahmabhuta. Brahmabhuta means on the spiritual platform. There are two. less advanced, more advanced, you can say, on the spiritual platform, where one understands Krishna. It's not, like theoretical, but they understand Krishna, but there's still some material contact. Like Lord Brahma, who has this wonderful realization described, but he also wants to create a universe. He clearly understands Krishna, and he clearly wants to create a universe. So, one who is in that stage, it's called Swarup Gata. Here, I'll just read the Prabhupada's commentary. One who has understood Krishna in truth, but is still maintaining some material connection, is known to be situated in his Swarup, his original consciousness. The next stage, when that original consciousness is completely spiritual, it is called Krishna consciousness. One who lives in such consciousness is actually living in Vrindavan. He may live anywhere, material location doesn't matter. When, by the grace of Krishna, one thus advances, he becomes completely uncontaminated by the material body and mind, and at that time factually lives in Vrindavan. That stage is called Vastu Gata. Swarup Gata, understanding Krishna with still some material association, Swarup Gata. No longer any material association, even you're embodied and all of that, Vastu Gata. Very, very, very elevated. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. One should execute his activities in the Swarup Gata stage of consciousness. That is, strive for understanding Krishna, just as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tatvataha. We recite it every year at Janmashtami, at least. Understand Krishna in truth. In truth. Chakvadeham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjana. Such a person doesn't come back into this material world, but punarjanma na. No more material existence. So, one should come to that stage, and by the maturing of that stage, one becomes completely free, this Vishuddha Sattva stage, from any material contact whatsoever. Gradually, the mature stage comes. So it's similar, but there are some differences. And please remember this because I'm going to refer to it again. Swarup Gata and Vastu Gata. But so back to the first part, Jiva Goswami focuses on these two processes, mantra upasana, because it's directly spoken of in the verse and the next verse, this 18-syllable mantra, inscribed in a hexagonal shape, forming the abode of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. Then comes the meaning. So the third part is the meaning, and you'll find it right in the purport. What do these words mean of this mantra? Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi. There's 6 parts, and the central part, as you see in the diagram here, Klim, indicates Radha Krishna. So they're at the center. And then there's 6 parts. Krishnaya, Govindaya, that's 2. Gopi Jana, that's 3. Bhavabhaya, that's 4. Sva, Ha, that makes 6. So you'll find, those of you that have books, in the purport of text 3, the second paragraph, about a third of the way down. starting with the word sva. That's where we're reading from, if you have your text. If not, just listen. The word sva. So like when we do yagyas, it's swaha, swaha, swaha. Same vibration. In the context of this mantra, it has a very special meaning. Sva indicates kshatragya, same as in Bhagavad Gita chapter 13. Kshetra and kshatragya, the field of activities, and the knower of the field of activities. Chapter 13, Bhagavad Gita. So here, kshatragya, Bhaktisiddhanta is saying, is one who is conversant with one's inner self. So that's who you really are. That's sva. And ha indicates the transcendental nature. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the very, very end. It indicates self-surrender. Self-surrender is the force. There are some of us who have received initiation in this Gopal mantra. And what I'm about to read to you is what it means from Bhaktisiddhanta. It's high, but you listen carefully, you go back and read it again and read it again and read it again, and eventually it'll become clear. It's submission. Sva, or sva, ha. He writes, entire self-surrender unto Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Bhalabhaya. Sva, ha. Very nice. So then he takes, we'll read. This meaning of the mantra has also been corroborated in Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas. The general meaning is that one who is desirous of entering into the esoteric pastimes of Krishna will have to practice his transcendental service along with the culture of devotional knowledge relative to him. It's mantra upasana. Enter into the esoteric pastimes of Krishna. This mantra provides the means for doing that. You just have to do it carefully and repeatedly and thoughtfully and continue. Sadhana, practice. Abhyasa, continue to strive and over again, as Brahma did. We're followers of Brahma. So now, next in this purport, it gives Bhaktisiddhanta's meaning of each of these 6 parts. So it starts with Krishnaya. So Krishnaya, the proper self of Krishna. Then Govindaya, the true nature of Krishna's transcendental pastimes in Braja. So there's Krishna and Krishna's pastimes in Braja, and then Gopijana means the true nature of his spiritual associates in Braja, the spiritual milkmen and the milkmaids, Gopas and Gopis. Gopijana, the true nature of those associates of Krishna. Bhalabhaya means the true nature of self-surrender to Krishna in the footsteps of the spiritual milkmaids of Braja. And there's the Gopi Jala, and then there's their feelings of submission to him. Balabhaya. Balabha generally means pleasure, but their pleasure is submission to Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates with them and gives them pleasure. That's the Balabha. It's a reciprocation. It's not just one thing. They experience Balabha. They experience submission to Krishna, and from that submission to Krishna, they experience great happiness. Then again he gives sva, the true nature of the spiritual knowledge of the unalloyed individual soul. That's like who we really are. Sva. And then ha, the true nature of transcendental service to Krishna. Is this, that the esoteric relation is established on awakening of one's pure cognition. Now that's Bhaktisiddhanta's language. What's he saying? The Chit Shakti, if you remember from earlier, their internal potency has three divisions: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Chit is the cognitive feature, or that potency by which, you'll hear it again in the course of this class, directly quoting Prabhupada and other acharyas. That energy by which Krishna knows himself and by which others know Krishna. That's what's being referred to. Pure cognition. Krishna gifts, extends to the devotee his Chit Shakti, pure cognition, so that they can know him. That mercy is available, we're just not ready for it, we're not eager for it, and so we don't experience it. Krishna's ready to give it. We're ready to, find what's for lunch or something. What's going on? Some kind of enjoyment other than relationship with Krishna. And then here, this last sentence that I'm going to read is a summary of the mantra. I'll read it slowly. And this is the meaning of Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Balabhaya Swaha. The meaning is that rasa is mellow, the exchange of love with Krishna. Rasa is only the transcendental service of the central refuge, Śrī Krishna, central refuge, the Klim in the center, Radha and Krishna. The predominating aspect of the Absolute by one's ego, swa, one's spiritual identity, as the spiritual maid of the predominated, here is moiety. Moiety means half. Radha, the servant of Radha. That's my identity. This verse is speaking in the mood of the gopis, thinking of themselves as simply assisting Radha in her loving relationship with Krishna. That's the meaning of this mantra. As of the absolute integer, meaning Krishna, attended with pure devotion in the shape of one's entire self-surrender. That's the meaning. So, those of you that chant this mantra 10 times, 3 times daily, you might want to refer to what Bhaktisiddhanta says, what the mantra is that we're chanting, that Lord Brahma also chanted, and many other Vaishnavas in the world, in the past and in the present, have chanted and are chanting. Bhaktisiddhanta in this little section says there's a practice involved, and the practice is this submission side by side with a cultivation of devotional knowledge relative to him, which is what we're doing, the cultivation of knowledge relative to him right now. And then when you're chanting the mantra, that's the submission part. Knowing who it is that you're submitting unto, and the mood of submission, like the residents of Vrindavan. That's what this mantra means. And it's inscribed right in the center of the yantra. It's the abode of Krishna. It's what happens. The pastimes of Krishna are enacted in this manner. One who chants this mantra, upasana method, can enter into that. Gradually, one can become qualified. Now, our process is, we have this mantra, but we don't use yantra. You can search in Vedabase and wherever you want to look, and there's no mention anywhere of Prabhupada ever instructing the devotees, his followers, to use this method of yantra side by side with mantra. But here's what Prabhupada writes instead. This is taken from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse 221, where he's speaking exactly of what we're talking about. Lord Brahma, sitting on his lotus seat, in his own abode, always meditates on him, Govinda, and worships him with the mantra consisting of 18 syllables. Same mantra. Prabhupada's purport. In his own planet, Lord Brahma, with the inhabitants of that planet, worships the form of Lord Govinda, Krishna, by the mantra of 18 syllables. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Ballabhaya Swaha. Those who are initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and who chant the Gayatri mantra 3 times a day know this 18-syllable mantra. The inhabitants of Brahmaloka and the planets below Brahmaloka worship Lord Govinda by meditating with this mantra. And then the operative part. There is no difference between meditating and chanting, but in the present age, meditation is not possible on this planet. Therefore, loud chanting of a mantra like Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, with soft chanting of Ashta Dasha Kshara, the mantra of 18 syllables, is recommended. That's our method. You follow? Brahma did with yantra and chanted his 18-syllable mantra. We don't have the capacity to meditate like Brahma had the capacity, so we chant Hare Krishna mantra aloud in kirtan and in our japa. And then in Gayatri chanting or mantra upasana chanting that we do, those who are Brahmanically initiated, we combine those two things. That's the form of expression. We don't need to rewire our sadhana and get a yantra and put it in front of you and etc. We're learning how Brahma did, and those elements are within what we do. That's the point. Continuing, Prabhupada writes, well, this is in Madhya Lila, chapter 21, text 145. In other words, a devotee who has heard the sound of Krishna's flute forgets to talk or hear of any other subject. Krishna's flute, because, the cover picture of Brahma Samhita I mentioned. Lord Brahma heard the sound of Krishna's flute, and out of his mouth came Kam Gayatri. So one who has heard the sound of Krishna's flute, one doesn't want to hear anything else and think of anything else, speak of anything else. A serious devotee of the Lord who chants and hears this transcendental vibration becomes so accustomed to it, then he cannot divert his attention to any subject matter not related to Krishna's blissful characteristics and paraphernalia. Okay. So that's another section. Now, use of mantras is the next section, but I've already touched on it. It's not something that we do. It's something that Brahma did and persons of his caliber did, or of his, in the beginning of creation at least we're hearing. It's a process, a bona fide process. that's not so suited for us. We have our own process of mantra upasana. We do it every day when we greet the deities. If we're aware of what the process is, it might enliven us to be more attentive than mechanical when we say the verses and meditate upon Krishna, as is being recommended by Jiva Goswami and these exalted Vaishnavas, Gopal Tapani Upanishad and so on. Okay, so now there's the yantra. We're going to see some more, or hear some more, and see this image again. There's the central part. Exactly tomorrow morning we're going to hear about the white part surrounding it. We're going to hear some more about the central part. So there's the yantra blank, and then there's the yantra with the 18-syllable hexagonal mantra inscribed within. And now we're ready for text 4. So we can chant text 4 together. Let's see. What happened? Oh, there it is. Tad kinjalkam tad angshanam tat pratrani shriyam api. That was pretty short. Translation. The whirl of that eternal, the whirl, that's the central part, the whirl. There's the petals that extend from the whirl, the corolla, the central. The whirl of that eternal realm, Gokula, is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. It is the abode of Krishna. Its petals what happened? Oh, that's backwards. Confusing. Its petals are the abodes of the gopis. So you see there's the figure with the mantra, and then the petals surrounding is the abode of the gopis. Who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted, and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like dham, i.e. spiritual abode of Śrī Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. This is just a few points, and we're done. Emphasis in his commentary on this verse goes to Klim, the bija mantra, the bija portion of this Gopal mantra. And it indicates Radha and Krishna, very simply. Radharani's position is, we all know this, we've heard it so many times, she is the Hladini Shakti portion of the internal potency. The internal potency has 3 divisions: Samvit, Sandini, and Hladini. We already spoke a little bit about Sandini. The Sandini potency manifests the Dham. Remember that. Sandini potency. Samvit is the cognitive. Vit means to know. Samvit potency is that by which Krishna knows himself and others know him. Or Chit potency, similarly. And Hladini is the pleasure potency. Here's Jiva Goswami explaining in Bhagavat Sandarbha. The transcendental potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by which he maintains his existence is called Sandhini. The transcendental potency by which he knows himself and causes others to know him is called Samvit. The transcendental potency by which he possesses transcendental bliss and causes his devotees to have bliss is called Hladini. The total exhibition of these potencies is called Vishuddha Sattva. Now this is an important term that you're going to hear several times. In fact, we've already heard it, but we're going to hear it again and again. What we're speaking about in the spiritual realm is completely free from material contamination. Krishna's form is all spiritual. Krishna's abode is all spiritual. Everything about Goloka and Krishna Loka, it's all spiritual. There's no touch, not a trace, not a speck, not a particle of material contamination found in the spiritual world. So whenever we hear about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes, it's all spiritual. It's important. It's very important to remember that. So Vishuddha Sattva is therefore the proper atmosphere in which to experience the personality of Godhead. What does that mean? It means that we have to, we need to chant our mantra properly. That's what it means. Because Krishna is all pure. He's supremely pure. And by contacting the supremely pure in the merciful form of mantra, we can become pure, thus enter a Vishuddha Sattva, thus enter into the pastimes of Krishna. That's the fruit, or the result, the consequence of proper chanting. The Lord and his devotees simultaneously perceive the Hladini potency directly by the power of Samvit. This is Jiva Goswami's commentary. It is indicating, the same thing is indicated later on in Brahma Samhita, in towards these concluding verses, where, I'll say it slowly, when we're living entities, we're marginal potency, spiritual by nature but influenced by matter. And we would like to become in touch with Krishna again, in our relationship with Krishna again. To become conscious of Krishna, the combination of the two, Hladini potency, that's devotional service unto Krishna, together with the Samvit potency. When those two combine, then one can experience Krishna and one's relationship with Krishna. The practice of devotional service combined with the cultivation of proper knowledge of Him. It's descending knowledge of Him. Krishna extends his Samvit and Hladini potency, and one can be again in one's relationship with Krishna, fully experiencing transcendental happiness, which we're always hankering for. So, now just to conclude, that the petals, the petals are mentioned as the abodes of the gopis. Hopefully, yes, there we go. There's the petals depicted this way. The verse says that the petals are the abodes of the gopis. And so you see inscribed on the petals, the inner petals, they're the 8 principal gopis. Surrounding those are the manjaris who are assisting those eight principal gopis. And then there's petals and petals and petals and petals that are abodes of gopis. Radharani has expanded herself into lots of gopis. Tens of thousands of gopis. Jiva Goswami, in his commentary of Krishna Sandarbha, says, actually the petals are as well the residents of other of Krishna's associates in Vrindavan. And I'll just read what he says there. After the description of the internal abode of Sri Krishna, which is the whirl of the lotus flower, known as Goloka, there is a description of the petals situated about that abode. Those petals are the abodes of the cowherd residents of Goloka, who are all the relatives and friends of Sri Krishna. That the cowherds of Vrindavan are the relatives of Krishna is described by Shukadeva Goswami in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:36-15. On this lotus flower of Goloka Vrindavan are many petals known as Patrani Shriyam, directly from the verse of Brahma Samhita. On this lotus flower of Goloka are many petals known as Patrani Shriyam, the many gardens, which are abodes of Srimati Radharani and the gopis, where these petals join the whirl of the Goloka lotus flower. The paths of Goloka are situated, and the extensions of these petals are the places of the cow pastures of Goloka. In this way, the parts of the lotus flower of Gokula Vrindavan are described and in this very nice illustration depicted. So, many of us have been to Vrindavan. And when we go to Vrindavan, we go to Govardhan Hill, we go to Nandagram, we go to Varsana, we go to Radhakund and Shamakund. Sometimes we go to the other side of the river Jamuna, to Raval and Gokul and Mahavan. All these are within that yellow area in the middle. That's Vrindavan, in Krishna's abode, in the abode of Krishna's associates, the petals. That's Vrindavan. And we're going to hear next, tomorrow morning, about the area surrounding Braja, or specifically Mathura and Dwarka. And you can see in that picture up there on the right-hand side, the white portion around the lotus flower. Just to end, little special appreciation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes one commentary from the 10th canto where he's describing the ages of Krishna. And it reads as follows. The 3 years and 4 months that Lord Krishna stayed in Mahavan were the equivalent of 5 for an ordinary child. He grew up quickly. And thus, in that period, he completed his Kumara age of childhood. The period from then to the age of 6 years and 8 months, during which he lived in Vrindavan, constitutes his Poganda stage. There are too many demons in Gokul, so Nanda Maharaj decided to leave and go back to Vrindavan. And they stayed at a place that's in the area of Vrindavan itself, and then later to Kamyavan, and then Kailavan, and then he went to Nandagram. So that's his Poganda age. In the period from the age of 6 years and 8 months through his 10th year, during which time he lived at Nandagram, constitutes his Kaishora age. Then, at the age of 10 years and 7 months, on the 11th lunar day of the dark fortnight of the month of Chaitra, he went to Mathura. And on the 14th day, so it took him 3 days to kill Kamsa, from the time he left with Akrura. On the 14th day thereafter, he killed Kamsa. Then he completed his Kaishore period at age 10, and eternally remained at that age. In other words, we should understand that from this point the Lord remains forever a Kaishore. So, the numbering system of other acharyas says that he returned to Mathura when he was 12. Here he's saying it's 10 years in 4 months. But in any event, whether it's 10 years and 4 months or 12 years, there are ages of Krishna, and so for all those before he returned to Mathura, it's what we're seeing in this image here. And tomorrow morning we're going to describe what's the other area outside of Gokul that's also part of the spiritual planet, Goloka, Gokula. They're connected as one transcendental realm. And we'll hear some more tomorrow morning. So any discussion or questions? Yes? Microphone? You need a teenager to help you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So thank you for the wonderful class. So reading this text for translation, I am just trying to understand it. Is the respective awards of Sri Radha and Krishna different?
Varsana and Nandagram are both in Vraja. They didn't live in the same house, but they're both part of Vraja. So the abode is the same, although the actual residence was slightly different. Does that answer your question? Varsana and Nandagram are both depicted in that yellow region. Whoops, took the picture away. Can you put the picture back? Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much. I have been chanting that Gopala mantra for many years, every day, 30 times at least, and never knew why we chant, but today's class makes it very clear. And so that's appreciation. Question is that if you can go back to the previous, that copper color slide where the mantra is given.
Yeah.
I see a little different wording there. Is that?
This image came from Bhanu Swami. I can't read what it says, but in his presentation on Brahma Samhita, he includes this. Now, so I can't comment on the brass plate, but I can comment on this one, because I had a Sanskritist translate it. And it looks, like what you'll see when it gets filled up, but it looks like this. And then surrounding this, we'll see that the Hare Krishna mantra appears, the abodes of the gopis, and then the Hare Krishna mantra. So the brass plate one I can't vouch for. This one I can.
So Shaki, all around there, that I understood. But what is the blue next to, between both of them, like between Sudevi and, I can't read this far, but so it just says claim 8 times.
But inside, that's one. Okay. This is Lalita's abode.
Okay.
This is Vishaka's abode.
That I got it.
This is Chitra Devi's abode, Induleka's abode, Champakalata's abode, Ranga Devi's abode, Tunga Vidya, and Sudevi. And if I were to take you back, that's why it was going backwards, to this one, whoops, to this image, that's what it says. I can't read it. But Sanskrit scholars can, and Dr. Chaitanya Maharaj was reading it right from the yantra. Can you read it?
It just says claim And my question is those between Sudevi and Lalita, that blue color next to it, yes. There are 8 times. I mean, any...
Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
No, I'm just trying to understand.
I can't answer why it's there. It's there. And it was translated
As clean.
as
Yeah.
in Roman letters.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Very inspiring.
Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can you explain what means Brahma Muhurta?
What means what?
Brahma Muhurta?
What it means?
Uh-huh.
Muhurta is a period of time. It's a measure of time. And it's roughly about an hour and a half before the sun rises. Brahma Muhurta is that section of time that comes around that time. It's ideal for spiritual activity. There's so many muhurtas in the course of a day, or the course of an hour, so many muhurtas. And Brahma Muhurta is that period of time when it's ideal for spiritual practice, most ideal during the time before the sun rises. If you want a little more detail on what a muhurta is, I invite you to read Calculation of Time by the Atom in Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it gives more detail about a muhurta. But it's basically it's a measurement of time. Yes.
Maharaj, there's a question online. It's from Arvind Prabhu. He asks, since Krishna's name, form and pastimes are non-different, what is the reason for not being able to enter into the Prakat Leelas? Why can't we not achieve that as a result of chanting?
We can, but the result of chanting is that one becomes purified and thus eligible. Right now we're chanting but not purified. We continue chanting and get further purification, and then that entrance becomes possible. So advise the person to keep chanting to become qualified. Yes. Is it on?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. Maharaj, you have mentioned about the Swarup Katha and Vastu Katha.
Yes.
So which category Brahma belongs to?
Swarup Katha and eventually Vastu Katha. We'll hear some more about it as we continue. But at this stage, it's sadhana. He's doing his sadhana of mantra upasana. And he hasn't come to the stage of doing his service yet, of creating. He's still in the process of understanding his identity, his sva, or his swarup, and his position in relation to Krishna as his eternal servant. Ha!
Thank you.
And then eventually it's in the mood of Madhurya, or an eternal maidservant of Krishna. And that's the rest of the mantra. He's not even at the Swarup stage in the beginning. He eventually comes to the Swarup stage, Swarup Siddha stage, or Swarup Katha, where he composes the Brahma Samhita prayers, the Govindam prayers. At the end of that, he then asks the Supreme Lord what to do about the fact that I still have this material desire. I still want to create a universe while I understand you. That's the Swarup Katha stage. By continuing, one can come to the Vastu Katha stage.
But he is conducting material affairs just by the instruction of Lord Krishna.
Of course. So he's not like us, which is your point. And absolutely, he's not like us. Still, read it carefully. It's not my judgment of Brahma, it's the statements of the verses and the commentary that says there's still some material contact. And therefore, Surupkata, according to this definition of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but continuing, Vastukata, or that person is always in Vrindavan, wherever they are, doing whatever they're doing. That's the Vastukata stage. It's the mature fruit of that proper following, that proper sadhana. Okay?
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thanks for wonderful session. And I have I'm little bit confused about potencies, internal potencies like
You probably have lots of company. You're a little confused.
Yeah.
And you probably have lots of company. Go ahead. Now, the particular confusion is about?
Sandhini potency and Samvit and Ladini potencies.
I couldn't follow.
The three different
the three potencies.
Yeah.
Samvit. This starts with, you're familiar with the terms Sat, Chit, Ananda. Yes?
Yeah.
Sat, I can't see you for eye contact. Sat, off the camera, corresponds with Sandhini. Sat means existential potency, that which exists, Sat, as opposed to Asat, impermanent. Sat is permanent. Sandhini potency corresponds with Sat. And that Sandhini potency manifests the spiritual world. Krishna's paraphernalia, Krishna's abode, the Kalpavriksha trees, the Surabhi cows, even Krishna's form. Sandhini potency, Sat. Samvit corresponds with Chit, or cognizance. That potency by which Krishna knows himself and others can know him. Samvit. So existence, knowledge, and pleasure. Ladini. And the pleasure potency pervades everything in Goloka. Radharani is everywhere. Her influence is everywhere. And through that Ladini potency, one may be engaged in Krishna service. And combine the three, that's the internal potency, Antaranga Shakti, Krishna's, how he conducts his affairs in the spiritual world, and combined they're also known by the name Vishuddha Sattva, which I mentioned, that I'm going to make reference to again and again. Vishuddha Sattva. Everything of the spiritual world is completely pure. No tinge of anything material. Does that
Yeah, clear,
help?
Prabhu. What you are going to tell is Sandhini means Krishna's pastimes.
No. No. Sandhini is the abode.
Abode of Krishna and all his pastimes going.
No, you're including pastimes. Thank you. Leave that out. It's the place,
Okay.
and the paraphernalia, and the forms. It's existence, spiritual existence.
And Samvit means like books or something, like we know through
knowledge.
Books.
Potency. It's a potency, not books. It's the potency of knowing.
So it is through other devotees, like how?
Sure.
Okay.
Krishna invests that potency as he wishes.
And the last one is like the service we do to Krishna, like Ladini potency means is the service.
Well, it's the agency through which we do service is Ladini, but Ladini means something a little broader. It's the pleasure of Krishna, the potency of Krishna's pleasure, which we can realize through the medium of devotional service.
Means the happiness we get when we do devotional service, like when we do Mahamantra, we'll be in different, like I can experience a different happiness.
Yes.
So that is the Ladini potency, right?
That's the
Prabhu?
Ladini potency, yeah.
It's clear, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, we're after 9 o'clock and I'm going to end. It's after 9 o'clock, I'm going to cut it off. Thank you all very much for being very patient and hearing all of this. Tomorrow morning, what time? 7 o'clock.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. And everybody please proceed downstairs, have a nice feast. And tomorrow morning we start sharp at 7 o'clock. Again, another session will be at 9:30 if you are not going to join us at 7. And then the evening session again at 7:30 tomorrow. And Saturday the same thing. It's a deep subject. Please attend and you will get immense benefit. Hari Bol. Thank you very much.
When Śrī Babu asks questions, ignore them, unless it makes sense, which I doubt. But if you find one that makes sense, then you can read it, otherwise just ignore it. Hare Krishna. Don't bang your head. Don't hit your head. Oh, just missed it. Yes. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes. What is it?